Alexandra Alex Hayes never intended to return to the Redwood National Forest. Its towering, ancient sentinels, once her sanctuary and her life's work, now felt like a mausoleum. 3 years had passed since the incident, the one the official report called a tragic misjudgment on her part, the one that had cost her everything: her badge, her reputation, and the quiet, unwavering trust of the forest itself. She'd traded the crisp, pine-scented air of Northern California for the suffocating humidity of a small, windowless office in Sacramento, pushing papers for a state environmental agency, a ghost of her former self. The vibrant green of the redwoods had been replaced by the sterile glow of fluorescent lights, the silence of the forest by the incessant hum of office machinery. She was a ranger without a wilderness, a protector without anything left to protect. The email arrived on a Tuesday, buried beneath a mountain of bureaucratic directives and interdepartmental memos. It was from an anonymous account, the subject line stark: "They're gone. Again. Redwood." Alex's breath hitched. Her fingers, usually so quick and precise on a keyboard, fumbled as she clicked it open. The message was brief, chillingly direct. Hikers. 2 of them. Just like the others. No trace. No struggle. The old ranger station, Sector Gamma. "Something's wrong. You know this place. You were the last one who listened." Attached was a grainy, low-resolution satellite image of a remote, overgrown trail, barely visible through the dense canopy. A red circle marked a small, dilapidated cabin, the very ranger station she had once called home. A cold dread settled in Alex's stomach, a familiar phantom limb ache of responsibility. The others. The anonymous sender was referring to the string of unexplained disappearances that had plagued the Redwood National Forest in the months leading up to her own dismissal. Hikers, campers, even a seasoned local tracker, all had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only unanswered questions and a growing unease that the authorities had been all too eager to dismiss as wilderness hazards or unfortunate accidents. Alex had been the only one who had pushed for a deeper investigation, who had sensed a pattern, a malevolent intelligence at play. Her persistence had been labeled obsessive, her theories unsubstantiated. And then, the incident. A controlled burn gone wrong, a sudden, inexplicable shift in wind patterns, and a swath of ancient trees reduced to ash. She had been the scapegoat, the convenient explanation for a phenomenon no one wanted to admit existed. She stared at the satellite image, the familiar outline of the forest calling to her, a siren song she had long tried to ignore. The Redwood National Forest was a place of immense power, a living cathedral of ancient giants that touched the sky. But it also held secrets, deep and dark, buried beneath centuries of growth. She knew its whispers, its moods, its hidden paths. And now, it was calling her back. By nightfall, Alex had submitted her resignation, a terse, unapologetic email that left no room for negotiation. Her small apartment in Sacramento, filled with the ghosts of a life she'd tried to forget, felt suddenly too small, too confining. She packed a single, worn backpack, her old ranger boots, a compass, a first aid kit, a powerful headlamp, and a battered copy of The Secret Life of Trees. She didn't call anyone, not her former colleagues, who had either abandoned her or believed the official narrative, not her estranged sister, who had always seen her obsession with the wild as a dangerous eccentricity. This was her burden, her penance. The drive north was long, the familiar highway stretching out like a ribbon of memory. As she left the sprawling urban sprawl behind, the air grew cooler, cleaner, carrying the faint, unmistakable scent of damp earth and ancient timber. The transition was gradual, then abrupt. The concrete gave way to asphalt, then to gravel, and finally to a narrow, overgrown dirt track that wound deeper into the heart of the forest. The towering redwoods, their bark a rich rust red, began to close in, forming a dense, almost impenetrable canopy overhead, plunging the road into a perpetual twilight. The silence here was different from the silence of her cabin in Valdez. It was a living, breathing silence, filled with the rustle of leaves, the chirping of unseen insects, the distant call of a hawk. It was the silence of the wild, and it felt like coming home, despite the chilling purpose of her return. The coordinates from the anonymous email led her to the very edge of Sector Gamma, a vast, remote expanse of the forest that had always felt different. Even to seasoned rangers, it held a certain untamed quality, a primal energy that bordered on the unsettling. The old ranger station, her former home, stood exactly as she remembered it. A small, weathered cabin, its porch sagging, its windows dark and empty, like vacant eyes. Overgrown vines snaked across its wooden walls, reclaiming it inch by slow inch. A faded sign, half obscured by moss, still read, Ranger Station, Sector Gamma, Est 1923. She parked her beat-up SUV off the main track, camouflaging it beneath a thick stand of ferns and young redwoods. The air here was heavy, humid, carrying a faint, earthy scent that was both familiar and subtly off, like damp soil mixed with something metallic. She stepped out, her boots sinking slightly into the soft earth. The forest was still. Unnaturally so. No birdsong. No rustling leaves. Just a profound, almost oppressive silence that pressed in on her from all sides. A shiver, unrelated to the cold, traced its way up her spine. She approached the cabin cautiously, her hand instinctively going to the heavy-duty flashlight clipped to her belt. The front door hung ajar, creaking faintly in the almost imperceptible breeze. Inside, dust motes danced in the single shaft of moonlight that pierced the grime-coated window. The air was stale, musty, thick with the scent of decay. Her old desk, still cluttered with forgotten maps and a half-eaten granola bar, sat covered in a thick layer of dust. The fireplace, where she had spent countless cold nights, was now cold and empty. But something was wrong. The silence here was too deep, too absolute. It was the silence of a place holding its breath. As she swept her flashlight beam across the room, it caught on something unusual. A patch of soil on the wooden floor, near the back wall, directly beneath a mounted map of the sector. It was dark, almost black, and strangely damp, as if recently disturbed. And it glowed faintly, with an almost imperceptible, unsettling green luminescence. Alex knelt, her heart pounding. She touched the soil. It was cold, unnaturally so, and had a strange, almost slick texture. It felt alive. She pulled out her small portable UV light. Under its harsh beam, the luminescence intensified, revealing a network of fine, thread-like structures woven through the soil, pulsing with that same eerie green light. It looked like mycelium, the root-like structure of fungi. But unlike anything she had ever seen, it was too vibrant, too intense, and it was spreading. A slow, insidious creep across the cabin floor, disappearing under the baseboards. A sudden, sharp crack echoed from the woods outside, the sound of a twig snapping underfoot. Alex froze, her hand instinctively reaching for the bear spray on her belt. She extinguished her flashlight, plunging the cabin into near-total darkness, save for the faint, unsettling green glow emanating from the floor. Her breath hitched in her throat. She wasn't alone. She didn't call the authorities. She knew they wouldn't listen. Not anymore. And even if they did, they wouldn't understand. This wasn't a missing persons case. This was something else, something ancient, something that had been awakened. She needed to find answers, and she knew exactly where to start looking. Her father, a renowned botanist, had always spoken of the forest as a living, interconnected entity, a vast, complex organism far beyond human comprehension. He had often taken her to a hidden, unmarked cave deep within Sector Gamma, a place he called the Heartwood. He believed it was a place of immense power, a nexus of the forest's life force. He had always warned her, "The forest guards its secrets fiercely, Alex, and some secrets are best left buried." Now, she knew, those secrets were trying to break free. The crack of the twig outside the ranger station cabin sent a jolt of adrenaline through Alex, sharpening her senses. She pressed herself against the cold, dusty wall, her heart hammering against her ribs, the faint green glow from the floor casting an eerie pallor on her face. Every shadow seemed to lengthen, to twist into menacing shapes. She listened, straining to catch any sound over the frantic beat of her own pulse. The forest outside was unnaturally silent again, the kind of silence that precedes a storm or a predator. She waited, motionless, for what felt like an eternity, but was likely only a few agonizing minutes. Nothing. No footsteps. No rustling. Just the oppressive stillness. Slowly, cautiously, Alex moved towards the front window, peering through the grimy pane. The moon, a sliver of silver, cast long, distorted shadows across the clearing. The trees stood like silent sentinels, their ancient branches reaching towards the sky. Nothing moved. Had it been an animal? Or had she imagined it, her nerves frayed by the unsettling discoveries? She couldn't be sure. But the feeling of being watched, of being an intruder in a place that was now actively hostile, clung to her like the damp, cold air. She knew she couldn't stay. The cabin, once a sanctuary, now felt like a trap. She needed to get to the Heartwood, the cave her father had spoken of. It was a long, arduous hike, even for her, and she needed to be fresh, alert. She slipped out of the cabin as silently as she had entered, melting into the dense undergrowth, her ranger training kicking in. She moved through the forest like a ghost, her footsteps light, her senses attuned to every shift in the wind, every snap of a twig. The green luminescence on the cabin floor lingered in her mind, a disturbing image that confirmed her deepest fears. She hiked for hours, navigating by the faint moonlight filtering through the canopy and the familiar constellations that had guided her since childhood. The forest here was different. The air grew heavier, thicker, carrying that strange, metallic, earthy scent that was becoming increasingly pronounced. The sounds of the forest, usually a symphony of life, were muted, almost absent. No chirping crickets, no hooting owls, just the soft, almost imperceptible hum that seemed to emanate from the very ground beneath her feet. It was the same hum she'd heard in Lily's video, the breathing of the earth. Here, it was stronger, a low, resonant thrum that vibrated through her boots, up her legs and into her chest. As dawn approached, painting the eastern sky with faint streaks of rose and gold, Alex reached the outskirts of a small, isolated settlement she barely remembered from her ranger days. It was a collection of rough-hewn cabins, nestled deep within a forgotten valley, far from any paved road. This was where the old-timers lived, the recluses, the ones who had chosen to live off the grid, fiercely independent and deeply connected to the land. She was looking for Elias Vance, a reclusive botanist and mycologist her father had corresponded with for years. Dr. Vance was rumored to have abandoned academia decades ago, choosing to live among the redwoods, studying the intricate, hidden networks of the forest. If anyone understood the strange phenomena, it would be him. She found his cabin at the end of a winding, barely discernible trail, almost swallowed by giant ferns. It was a ramshackle affair, built from salvaged timber, its windows crammed with potted plants and strange, glowing fungi in glass jars. A faint, earthy smell, reminiscent of damp soil, and something faintly sweet, wafted from within. Alex knocked cautiously on the weathered wooden door. After a long moment, the door creaked open. A man with wild, unkempt white hair and a beard that reached his chest peered out. His eyes, though clouded with age, were sharp, intelligent, and surprisingly piercing. He wore a patched flannel shirt and thick, mud-stained trousers. "Yes?" he rasped, his voice gravelly like dry leaves rustling. "Dr. Vance? I'm Alex Hayes, Forrest Hayes's daughter." His eyes widened slightly, a flicker of recognition. Forrest. Ah, yes. The one who listened. "Come in, child. You bring the scent of the forest with you." And something else. Something troubled. Alex stepped inside. The cabin was a chaotic wonderland of books. Dried plants, microscopes, and countless jars filled with various fungi, some glowing with an ethereal light. The air was thick with the scent of earth, old paper, and a faint, sweet, almost cloying aroma. Alex pulled out the small, glowing soil sample she had collected from her old ranger station. "I found this. It's spreading. And people are disappearing." Dr. Vance took the sample, his gnarled fingers surprisingly delicate. He held it under a small, powerful magnifying glass, his eyes narrowing. "Ah, yes. The mycelial heart. Or what's left of it. Your father spoke of it. A vast, ancient network. Deeper than any root. Older than any tree. It is the true consciousness of this forest. It has slept for millennia. But now, it stirs." He looked up, his gaze intense. "And it is not pleased." "What is it?" Alex asked, her voice hushed. "It is a superorganism. A vast, interconnected fungal network, symbiotic with the redwoods. It regulates the forest's health, its very lifeblood. But it is also sentient. It communicates through bioelectrical impulses, through the very soil. Your father believed it was the true brain of the forest." "Doctor." Vance walked over to a large, corkboard map of Sector Gamma, covered in intricate, hand-drawn lines and symbols. For centuries, it maintained a delicate balance. It protected the forest. But now, something is disrupting it. Something is mining it. He pointed to a series of dots on the map, connected by faint, almost invisible lines. "These are the energy signatures. I've been tracking them for months. They match the pattern of deep earth drilling. Not for oil. Not for gas. For something else. Something that resonates with the mycelial heart." "The disappearances?" Alex murmured. "Are they connected?" Dr. Vance nodded grimly. "The mycelial heart is defensive. It protects its territory. Those who vanish, they intruded too deeply. Or perhaps, they were consumed, absorbed. The forest reclaims its own." He pointed to a section of the map where a new, unsettling pattern of lines emerged, radiating outwards from a central point. "This is new. A concentrated extraction point. And it's growing. They are bleeding the forest dry." "Who are they?" Alex asked, a cold knot forming in her stomach. Dr. Vance's eyes hardened. "A corporation. Viridian Dynamics. They arrived quietly, buying up old logging permits, then expanding into environmental research. But their true agenda, it's far darker. They are seeking to harness the mycelial heart's energy, to weaponize it, to control the very life force of this planet." He turned to her, his gaze piercing. "Your father tried to stop them. He was getting too close to their operation. The controlled burn that cost you your job. It was a diversion, a cover-up. They silenced him. And they tried to silence you." Alex felt a surge of cold fury. It wasn't an accident. It was murder. Her father, a man who had dedicated his life to protecting the forest, had been killed for its secrets. And she had been blamed. "Where are they digging now?" she asked, her voice low and steady, a new resolve hardening her features. Dr. Vance pointed to a heavily shaded area on the map, deep within Sector Gamma, near the coordinates for the Heartwood. "Here, they've established a massive, clandestine facility, disguised as a research outpost. But it's a wound. A deep, festering wound in the forest's soul." He looked at her, his eyes filled with a weary wisdom. "You cannot go alone, Alex. They are ruthless, and the forest, it is waking." Alex looked at the map, then at the glowing sample in her hand. The mycelial heart. A sentient forest. A corporate enemy. Her father's death. The disappearances. It all clicked into place. A terrifying, intricate puzzle. She hadn't returned to the redwoods for silence. She had returned for war. The revelation of Viridian dynamics and their sinister agenda sent a chill down Alex's spine, a cold dread that settled deep in her bones. Her father's death, once a source of agonizing self-blame, now fueled a burning, righteous fury. It wasn't a tragic accident. It was a calculated murder, a silencing of a man who had dared to uncover their dark secrets. And she, his daughter, had been a convenient scapegoat, her career and reputation sacrificed to protect their illicit operations. The weight of that injustice, combined with the terrifying truth of the mycelial heart, solidified her resolve. She wasn't just fighting for her father's memory. She was fighting for the very soul of the forest. Dr. Vance, sensing her determination, began to outline the scale of the threat. Viridian Dynamics isn't just a logging company anymore, Alex. They're a bioengineering conglomerate. Their environmental research is a front for something far more ambitious and far more dangerous. They believe they can isolate, synthesize, and ultimately control the bioelectrical energy produced by the mycelial heart. Imagine a limitless, self-generating energy source. Or worse, a weapon that can manipulate consciousness, influence ecosystems on a global scale. He pointed to a series of complex diagrams tacked to his wall, showing intricate neural pathways superimposed over a map of the redwood forest. They call it Project Verdant Mind. Where is this facility? Alex asked, her voice tight. Vance pointed to the heavily shaded area on his map, deep within Sector Gamma. It's hidden beneath a natural rock formation, a place the old rangers called the Sentinel. It's disguised as a seismic research station, complete with fake sensors and a constant stream of fabricated data. But beneath the surface, it's a massive underground complex. A wound in the heart of the forest. He pulled out an old, worn, leather-bound journal, its pages brittle with age. Your father was compiling evidence. He had a contact, an inside man, a disillusioned scientist who worked for Viridian, Dr. Eris Thorne. She was feeding him information, trying to expose them from within. But then she went silent. Your father believed they got to her. He handed Alex a faded photograph of a woman with sharp, intelligent eyes and a determined jawline. If she's still alive, she might be our only hope for getting inside. Alex studied the photo. Eris Thorne. Another ghost from her father's past. Now potentially a key to their future. Vance continued, his voice grim. The mycelial heart is reacting to their intrusion. The disappearances are just the beginning. It's a defense mechanism. The forest is trying to expel the infection, but Viridian is pushing it, forcing it to expand, to yield its energy. They're accelerating its growth, but also its distress. The hum you heard. It's the forest's cry. He led her to a small, makeshift laboratory in the corner of his cabin, cluttered with microscopes, petri dishes, and strange glowing samples. I've been studying the anomalies. The mycelial heart, when stressed, releases spores. Not ordinary spores. These are different. They carry the bioelectrical signature. They can influence neural pathways, induce disorientation, even hallucinations. It's how the forest defends itself, and how it reclaims those who intrude. He showed her a petri dish containing a shimmering, almost ethereal green dust. This is what's causing the strange phenomena. The ghostly whispers hikers have reported. It's the forest trying to communicate its pain, or perhaps to drive them away. So, the disappearances aren't just people getting lost, Alex murmured, a chilling realization dawning on her. They're being absorbed? Vance nodded slowly. The mycelial heart seeks to integrate, to become one. It's not malicious. Not in the human sense. It's a primal, biological imperative. But to a human, it would be terrifying. A loss of self. He paused, his gaze fixed on the glowing dust. Viridian is trying to weaponize this, to control the mycelial heart's influence, To turn the forest's defense into their own offensive, Alex felt a cold dread. The implications were staggering. A living weapon controlled by a ruthless corporation, capable of manipulating minds, of absorbing life. "We need to get inside that facility," Alex said, her voice firm. "We need to find Eris Thorne, if she's there. And we need to expose what they're doing. Before it's too late." Vance looked at her, a flicker of admiration in his eyes. "It will be dangerous, Alex. Viridian's security is formidable. They have private military contractors, former special forces. They leave no witnesses." "I'm a former ranger, Dr. Vance," Alex replied, a grim smile touching her lips. "I know these woods better than they know their own shadows, and I have a score to settle." They spent the rest of the day planning. Vance provided Alex with detailed maps of the area, marked with his own observations of Viridian's movements and energy signatures. He also gave her a small, portable device, a bioelectrical scanner designed to detect the mycelial heart's unique frequency. "This will help you navigate the forest's moods," he explained. "And perhaps, if you're lucky, it might help you communicate with it." Your father believed it was possible. Under the cover of a moonless night, Alex set out. The forest was a labyrinth of shadows, the ancient redwoods towering above her like silent, watchful giants. The air was thick with the familiar, unsettling hum, stronger now, pulsing with a slow, rhythmic beat that resonated deep within her chest. The ground beneath her feet felt alive, a vast, interconnected web of roots and mycelial threads. She moved with the stealth of a seasoned predator, her ranger training guiding her every step. She avoided the main trails, sticking to the dense undergrowth, her senses acutely aware of every rustle, every snap of a twig. The bioelectrical scanner in her hand flickered faintly, its needle wavering, indicating the presence of the mycelial heart's energy. It was a constant companion, a silent guide in the overwhelming presence of the forest's consciousness. After hours of relentless hiking, she began to detect the subtle signs of human intrusion. Faint tire tracks, discarded plastic wrappers, the distant, almost imperceptible hum of generators. She was getting close. The air grew colder, even though the forest itself felt strangely warm, almost feverish. The metallic earthy scent intensified, mingled now with the faint, acrid smell of ozone. She reached the edge of a vast, natural clearing, shrouded in a perpetual mist. In the center, a colossal rock formation, the Sentinel, loomed like a dark, brooding giant, and beneath it, partially concealed by camouflage netting and dense foliage, was the entrance to Viridian Dynamics' clandestine facility. It looked like a typical research outpost. A few prefabricated buildings, a satellite dish, and a small helipad. But Alex knew better. This was the wound, the point of entry into the mycelial heart. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, their movements precise, their weapons glinting faintly in the dim light. Floodlights cast harsh, artificial shadows across the clearing, a stark contrast to the soft, natural light of the forest. The hum here was deafening, a low, guttural roar that vibrated through the very ground. It was the sound of powerful machinery, drilling deep into the earth, bleeding the forest dry. Alex found a vantage point on a rocky outcrop, concealed by a thick cluster of ancient redwoods. She pulled out her binoculars, scanning the facility. The security was formidable. Just as Vance had warned, laser grids, motion sensors, thermal cameras. Getting in would be a challenge. Getting out, even more so. As she watched, a large transport vehicle, heavily armored, rumbled into the clearing, its engine a low growl. It parked near a reinforced loading bay. A team of technicians, dressed in hazmat suits, emerged from the facility, their faces obscured by visors. They began to unload large, cylindrical containers, their surfaces glowing faintly with that familiar, unsettling green luminescence. Resonant core matter. The mycelial heart's essence, extracted and contained. Alex felt a cold, righteous anger course through her veins. They were desecrating the forest, ripping out its very soul. She gripped the bioelectrical scanner. Its needle was now wildly oscillating, the hum a frantic, desperate cry. The forest was in pain. And it was calling to her. She knew what she had to do. She had to get inside. She had to find Eris Thorn. And she had to stop them, no matter the cost. The sight of the glowing RCM containers solidified Alex's resolve. Viridian Dynamics wasn't just drilling. They were systematically harvesting the mycelial heart, turning the forest's lifeblood into a commodity. The hum from the facility was a constant, oppressive thrum, a low, guttural roar that vibrated through the very ground, a symphony of desecration. Alex knew she couldn't afford to wait. The forest was suffering and every minute counted. She spent the next few hours meticulously observing the facility's routines, mapping guard patrols, identifying blind spots in the security grid. Her ranger training, honed by years of tracking poachers and navigating treacherous terrain, served her well. She found a weakness: a rarely used service tunnel, partially concealed by overgrown ferns, leading to the facility's ventilation system. It was small, cramped, and likely unmonitored, a calculated risk she was willing to take. Under the cover of the pre-dawn darkness, Alex made her move. She slipped through the perimeter fence, her movements silent, almost fluid. The bioelectrical scanner in her hand pulsed with a frantic rhythm, a silent alarm echoing the forest's distress. She found the service tunnel, its entrance barely visible beneath a tangle of roots. The air inside was stale, metallic, and carried a faint, sweet, almost cloying scent, the same aroma she'd noticed in Dr. Vance's cabin, emanating from the glowing spores. She crawled through the narrow passage, her headlamp beam cutting through the oppressive darkness. The tunnel opened into a larger ventilation shaft, leading deeper into the facility. She could hear the muffled hum of machinery, the distant voices of technicians. She was inside. She navigated the labyrinthine ducts, following the faint, rhythmic pulse of the RCM, guided by the scanner. It led her to a large, sterile laboratory, bathed in the harsh glow of fluorescent lights. Technicians in hazmat suits moved with practiced efficiency, manipulating glowing samples of the mycelial heart, running complex analyses on massive computer screens. In the center of the room, a large cylindrical containment unit pulsed with a vibrant, unsettling green light, a concentrated sample of the RCM, far larger and more powerful than anything she had seen before. Then she saw her. A woman, her face pale and drawn, but with the same sharp, intelligent eyes from the photograph Dr. Vance had given her. Dr. Eris Thorn. She was hunched over a console, her fingers flying across a keyboard, a look of desperate urgency on her face. She wasn't a prisoner, not exactly, but she moved with the constrained energy of someone trapped. Alex slipped out of the ventilation shaft, landing silently behind a row of equipment. She approached Eris cautiously, her heart pounding. "Dr. Thorn?" she whispered. Eris spun around, startled, her eyes widening in surprise and a flicker of fear. "Who? Who are you? How did you get in here?" "My name is Alex Hayes. Forrest Hayes' daughter. He sent me." Recognition dawned in Eris's eyes, quickly followed by a flash of hope. "Forrest. He's dead, isn't he? They told me he died in a forest fire." Her voice was a raw whisper. "They killed him. He was getting too close to Project Verdant Mind." Alex replied, her voice grim. "He believed you were still alive. He said you were trying to expose them." Eris nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I was. I am. They caught me. They didn't kill me. They needed my expertise. They're trying to control the mycelial heart, to weaponize its consciousness. They call it conscious bioresonance manipulation. They believe they can amplify its defensive capabilities and direct them. Turn the forest into a living weapon." She gestured to the glowing RCM sample in the containment unit. "That's a seed core. They're trying to grow it, to cultivate its consciousness in a controlled environment, to make it obey." Just then, a harsh voice cut through the air. "Dr. Thorne, what is the meaning of this?" A man in a crisp, dark suit, his face cold and imperious, strode into the lab, flanked by two armed guards. He was Director Elias Thorne, Eris's estranged father, and the head of Project Verdant Mind. His eyes, devoid of warmth, fixed on Alex. "And who is this unauthorized individual?" Eris stepped forward, shielding Alex. "Father, no! This is insane. You're destroying the forest. You're playing with something you don't understand." Director Thorne's lips curled into a sneer. "Foolish girl. You always were too sentimental. This is the future, Eris. Unlimited energy. Unparalleled defense capabilities. Imagine a bioweapon that targets only specific neural patterns. We can end all conflict. We can control the world." His gaze hardened as he looked at Alex. "You're Forrest Hayes' daughter, aren't you? The little ranger who caused so much trouble. I should have known you'd come sniffing around." "You killed my father," Alex stated, her voice cold, devoid of emotion. Director Thorne chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "A necessary casualty. He was a sentimental fool who stood in the way of progress. Just like you." He gestured to his guards. "Secure them, the daughter of the Forest Whisperer and the Bleeding Heart Scientist. A perfect pair. We'll find a use for you both. Perhaps as test subjects for our new integration protocols." Before the guards could move, Eris acted. With a desperate cry, she slammed her hand down on a console, overriding the lab's containment protocols. Alarms blared, a piercing shriek that echoed through the facility. The lights flickered wildly. The glowing RCM seed core in the containment unit began to pulse erratically, its green light intensifying, then dimming, then flaring violently. "What have you done, you idiot?" Director Thorne roared, his face contorted in rage. "I've released it," Eris screamed, pointing to the containment unit. "The mycelial heart. It's free, it's angry, and it's coming for you." The containment unit shuddered violently. A crack appeared in its reinforced glass. From within, the green light intensified, becoming blinding. A low, guttural roar, deeper and more primal than any machinery, emanated from the core. The entire lab began to shake. "Evacuate! Evacuate!" Director Thorne screamed, pushing past his guards, a look of pure terror on his face. Alex grabbed Eris, pulling her towards a service exit. "This way." Dr. Vance told me about a hidden exit. They scrambled through the chaos, the sounds of alarms, shouting, and the terrifying growing roar of the mycelial heart echoing behind them. The ground beneath their feet trembled violently. The air was thick with the sweet, cloying scent of the spores, now mixed with the acrid smell of ozone and something else, something ancient and enraged. They burst out into the pre-dawn forest, gasping for breath. The facility behind them was a cacophony of wailing sirens and exploding equipment. The mycelial heart's roar was now a deafening, all-encompassing thrum that vibrated through the very trees. Alex looked back. The colossal rock formation, the Sentinel, was glowing with an unholy green light, pulsing in tandem with the enraged mycelial heart. Vines, thick and glowing faintly, erupted from the ground, snaking towards the facility, tearing through concrete and steel with terrifying force. The forest was reclaiming its own. "We need to get to Dr. Vance," Alex shouted over the din, pulling Eris along. "He'll know what to do." Eris, her face pale but resolute, nodded. "He's the only one who truly understands it." The mycelial heart. It's not just energy. It's a living, breathing consciousness. And now, it's unleashed. They ran, deeper into the ancient redwoods, leaving the chaos of Viridian dynamics behind. But the hum of the mycelial heart, no longer contained, followed them, a vast, angry pulse that vibrated through the very air. A terrifying symphony of the forest's awakening. The war had truly begun. and the forest itself was now a formidable, unpredictable player. The roar of the mycelial heart, now fully unleashed, vibrated through the very ground, a primal, guttural sound that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Behind them, the Viridian Dynamics facility at the Sentinel was a scene of utter chaos. Alarms blared, machinery exploded, and the colossal rock formation itself pulsed with an unholy green light, as if the forest's ancient heart was finally beating free. Vines, thick as anacondas and glowing faintly, erupted from the earth, tearing through concrete and steel with terrifying organic force, reclaiming the desecrated ground. The air was thick with the sweet, cloying scent of the spores, now mixed with the acrid smell of ozone and something else. Something ancient, raw, and enraged. Alex and Eris ran, pushing themselves to their limits, deeper into the ancient redwoods. Eris, though physically exhausted and still reeling from the confrontation with her father, moved with a newfound determination. He always saw it as a resource, she gasped, her voice strained, a tool to be exploited. He never understood it was a living entity. A consciousness. He will now, Alex replied grimly, glancing back at the glowing chaos. The forest was fighting back, and it was a terrifying, beautiful sight. They reached Dr. Vance's cabin just as dawn broke, painting the sky with streaks of fiery orange and purple. Vance, alerted by the distant roar and the frantic readings on his bioelectrical scanner, was already waiting for them, his face etched with a mixture of dread and grim satisfaction. "It's awake," he stated, his voice hushed. "The mycelial heart, fully." "What did you do?" Alex quickly recounted their infiltration, the confrontation with Director Thorne, and Eris's desperate act of releasing the seed core. Eris added details about Project Verdant Mind, the corporation's true goal of weaponizing the mycelial heart's consciousness, and the integration protocols designed to control its influence. Vance listened, his eyes wide, then nodded slowly. They pushed it too far. They tried to break its will. Now it breaks theirs. The forest is purging the infection. He looked at the glowing RCM shard Alex still clutched, its light now pulsing in sync with the distant roar. This is a piece of its soul, Alex. A direct link. The bioelectrical scanner in Alex's hand was now a constant, frantic hum. Vance consulted his larger, more sophisticated equipment. The mycelial heart's energy signature is expanding rapidly. It's not just localized to Sector Gamma anymore. It's spreading through the entire forest's root system. The spores, they're being carried by the wind, by the very currents of the forest. They're affecting the ecosystem. The animals are agitated. And the trees, they're responding. He showed them a live feed from a remote sensor. A grove of ancient redwoods, miles away, was glowing faintly, their bark shimmering with a soft green luminescence. The air around them seemed to shimmer, distorting the light. The forest is becoming hyper-aware, Vance explained. Its consciousness is expanding, reaching out. And it's not just affecting the environment, it's affecting people. The disappearances, Alex murmured. They're not just being consumed. They're being integrated, Eris shuddered. My father believed he could direct that integration, to make people one with the forest on his terms, to create a new, compliant consciousness. He was playing God, Vance stated grimly. And now, the true God of this forest is responding. The immediate threat was clear. Viridian Dynamics, though crippled, would not give up. They would send in more forces, more mercenaries, to try and recontain or destroy the mycelial heart. And the mycelial heart itself, enraged and uncontained, posed its own unpredictable dangers. We need to do two things, Alex declared, her voice firm, taking charge. First, we need to ensure Viridian Dynamics is completely exposed and dismantled. No more hiding. No more cover-ups. Second, we need to find a way to pacify the mycelial heart, to help it return to dormancy, to heal the wound they inflicted. Eris nodded. I have access to Viridian's central server. If we can get to a secure network, I can leak everything. All their research, all their crimes, all their Project Verdant Mind data. It will be undeniable. And the mycelial heart? Alex asked Vance. How do we calm it? Vance looked at the glowing RCM shard in Alex's hand. Your father believed that the mycelial heart responds to empathy, to understanding, not force. It's a vast, ancient intelligence. It doesn't understand human concepts of good or evil. It understands balance, harmony, and intrusion. He paused, a thoughtful expression on his face. Perhaps, if we can show it that not all humans are a threat, if we can communicate with it, not as masters, but as protectors, as part of the forest, not separate from it. How do we do that? Eris asked. Vance pointed to the RCM shard. That shard. It's a conduit, a piece of its essence. Your father theorized that a human with a strong connection to the forest, someone who truly listens to its whispers, might be able to establish a direct link, to project intention, to soothe its rage. He looked at Alex. He believed you had that connection. Alex felt a tremor of fear, but also a strange sense of destiny. The Heartwood, she murmured. The cave my father spoke of. He said it was the nexus, the deepest point of its consciousness. Precisely, Vance confirmed. If there's a place to communicate with it, to guide it back to balance, it's there. But it will be dangerous. The mycelial heart's defenses will be at their peak, and Viridian will be hunting us. They spent the next day preparing. Vance gathered his most sensitive equipment, including a powerful, custom-built bioelectrical amplifier. Eris worked tirelessly on a secure satellite link, preparing the data dump. Alex, meanwhile, focused on her own connection to the forest. She meditated, focusing on the hum, on the rhythm of the mycelial heart. She held the RCM shard, feeling its pulse, trying to understand its rage, its pain. As dusk settled, painting the redwoods in hues of deep purple and shadowy green, they received an urgent message from one of Vance's contacts. Viridian Dynamics was mobilizing. A large contingent of armed mercenaries, backed by advanced thermal imaging drones, was sweeping Sector Gamma, heading directly towards Vance's cabin. They're coming, Ben stated, his rifle in hand, his face grim. They found us. We split, Alex ordered, her voice calm and decisive. Eris, you get to the secure link. Leak everything. Ben, you create a diversion. Lead them away from the Heartwood. I'll go to the Heartwood. I'll try to reach it. Eris nodded, her eyes filled with fierce determination. Good luck, Alex. Make them pay. Ben clapped her on the shoulder. Be careful, kid. The forest is on your side. But it's a wild ally. Alex watched them disappear into the deepening shadows, then turned towards the path to the Heartwood. The hum of the mycelial heart was now a deafening roar in her ears, a symphony of rage and pain. The RCM shard in her hand pulsed violently, its green light illuminating the path ahead. She was walking into the heart of the storm, into the very consciousness of the forest, and she knew with chilling certainty that this was her last stand. For her father, for Lily, for the forest. The path to the Heartwood was a labyrinth of ancient roots and moss-covered boulders, shrouded in a perpetual twilight even during the day. Now, under the moonless night, it was a tunnel of oppressive darkness, illuminated only by the frantic, pulsing green light of the RCM shard in Alex's hand. The hum of the mycelial heart was no longer just a sound. It was a physical presence, a vast, vibrating energy that permeated the very air, resonating deep within her bones. It was a symphony of rage and pain, a primal scream echoing through the ancient trees. The air grew thick with the sweet, cloying scent of the spores, now so concentrated it made her throat burn. She moved with a desperate urgency, pushing through the dense undergrowth, her ranger boots sinking into the damp earth. The trees around her seemed to writhe, their branches swaying violently even in the absence of wind. Strange, bioluminescent fungi bloomed on their bark, pulsing with the same unsettling green light as the RCM shard. The forest was alive, hyper-aware, its consciousness fully awakened and lashing out in a desperate defense. She heard the distant shouts of Viridian mercenaries, the thrum of their thermal drones sweeping through the canopy. Ben was doing his job leading them away, creating a diversion. Eris, she hoped, was already at the secure link, unleashing the truth upon the world. Now, it was up to her. Finally, she reached the entrance to the Heartwood. A colossal fissure in the side of a massive redwood, almost entirely concealed by a curtain of ancient vines. The air here was even thicker, heavier, charged with an immense raw energy. The hum was deafening, vibrating through her entire body, making her teeth ache. The RCM shard in her hand glowed with an almost blinding intensity, its pulse mirroring the frantic beat of her own heart. She pushed through the vines, stepping into the cave. It was not a cave in the traditional sense, but a vast, organic chamber, its walls covered in a shimmering, bioluminescent mycelial network. Roots, thick as ancient tree trunks, snaked across the floor and ceiling, pulsing with that same vibrant green light. In the center of the chamber, suspended within a natural hollow, was the true core of the mycelial heart. It was not a single crystal, but a vast, intricate network of glowing, interwoven mycelial threads, a living, breathing brain of pure bioelectrical energy. It pulsed with a blinding, rhythmic light, its hum a deafening roar that filled the entire chamber. Alex felt a profound connection, an overwhelming sense of ancient consciousness. It was immense, terrifying, but also vulnerable. It was reacting to the pain, the intrusion, the constant drilling. Its rage was a desperate cry for survival. She knelt before the core, holding the RCM shard out before her. The shard resonated with the core, its light flaring, then dimming, then flaring again, as if in conversation. Alex closed her eyes, focusing all her will, all her empathy, all her understanding. She projected her intention, not with words, but with pure thought, a silent plea. We are not your enemy. We are not here to harm you. We are here to protect you, to help you heal, to restore balance. The roar of the mycelial heart seemed to lessen, subtly at first, then more perceptibly. The frantic pulsing of the core slowed, its light softening to a gentler, more rhythmic glow. The air in the chamber, though still thick with spores, felt less oppressive, less charged with anger. Just then, a harsh, metallic voice echoed from the cave entrance. There she is, the little ranger. And the source of all this trouble. Director Elias Thorne stood at the entrance, flanked by a dozen heavily armed mercenaries. His face was a mask of fury, his eyes burning with a desperate, ruthless ambition. You think you can stop progress, girl? You think you can reason with a force of nature? Fool, this is power, and I will control it. He raised a specialized energy weapon, its barrel humming with a low thrum. We'll just have to cut out the cancer, won't we? Alex stood, shielding the mycelial heart core. The RCM shard in her hand pulsed, its light flaring in defiance. You don't understand it, Thorne. You're destroying it. You're destroying everything. Move aside, Thorne roared, aiming his weapon at the core. Before he could fire, a figure burst from the shadows behind him. Ben. His rifle cracked, taking down two mercenaries. Run, Alex! Get out of here! Chaos erupted. Gunfire echoed through the chamber, ricocheting off the mycelial walls. The mycelial heart roared again, its light flaring violently. Vines from the walls lashed out, snagging mercenaries, pulling them into the glowing network. The ground trembled. Alex knew this was her chance. She raised the RCM shard, focusing all her energy, all her connection to the mycelial heart. She projected a single powerful intention: defend yourself, protect the innocent, purge the infection. The mycelial heart responded. The glowing mycelial network on the walls intensified, sending out tendrils of pure bioelectrical energy. The hum became a high-pitched whine, then a deafening screech. The ground beneath Thorn and his remaining mercenaries erupted, as if the very roots of the forest were rising in rebellion. Glowing vines burst from the earth, wrapping around their legs, pulling them down. Spores, now glowing with an intense, blinding light, filled the air, causing the mercenaries to cough and choke, their movements becoming erratic, disoriented. Director Thorn screamed, his face contorted in terror as a massive, glowing root wrapped around his leg, pulling him towards the mycelial heart core. "No! I control you! I control you!" The core pulsed, a final, blinding flash of green light. Then, with a deep, resonant hum, it absorbed him. He was gone, integrated into the vast, ancient consciousness he had sought to control. The remaining mercenaries, disoriented and terrified, dropped their weapons and fled, scrambling back through the entrance, their screams echoing as the forest reclaimed them. Ben, bruised but alive, stumbled towards Alex. "Are you all right, kid?" Alex nodded, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The mycelial heart core was still pulsing, but its light was softer now, its hum a low, contented thrum. The rage had subsided. The forest had defended itself. "It's over," she whispered, looking at the glowing core. "It's finally over." Weeks later, the world slowly returned to something resembling normal, yet forever changed. Viridian Dynamics was dissolved, its executives facing international prosecution for environmental crimes, corporate espionage, and the deaths of countless individuals. Lawmakers launched unprecedented investigations into government projects spanning decades, unearthing the true history of Project Chimera and Project Verdant Mind. Scientists convened emergency conferences, their theories on geological consciousness and bioresonance filling late-night podcasts and academic journals alike. The truth, in all its terrifying, wondrous complexity, was finally out. But Alex returned to the Redwood National Forest. She didn't rebuild the ranger station. Instead, she worked tirelessly with Dr. Vance and a newly formed coalition of environmentalists and indigenous elders to establish a vast, protected zone around Sector Gamma. They planted indigenous wildflowers where the old facility had once stood, their delicate petals a vibrant contrast to the scarred earth. She placed a single, smooth riverstone marker near the entrance to the Heartwood. Forest Haze, listener, protector, father, Lily Rostova, seeker, truth-teller, sister. At sunset, Alex climbed to a ridge overlooking the ancient forest, her old, battered radio in hand. The air was crisp, clean, filled with the familiar scent of pine and damp earth. The hum of the mycelial heart was now a faint, almost imperceptible thrum, a gentle, rhythmic pulse that resonated deep within the forest. It was no longer a scream of rage, but a whisper of peace. "This is Heartwood Station," she said into the mic, her voice calm and clear, carried on the crisp mountain air. "Broadcasting for peace, for vigilance, for those who remember the whispers, for those who listen. The forest sleeps, but it remembers." Far below, deep in the ancient soil, the mycelial heart pulsed once, a faint, barely perceptible beat, like a lingering echo of a vast, dreaming soul. Then it went still. For now,